Hello, I'm Langston, and I'm back today on my channel, Military Election Forecasting. And I know I've been pretty busy. I haven't uploaded it's been a good little minute since I've uploaded. But today I'm going to be talking about the inevitable demise of Rust Belt Democrats. As of recently, Democrats have been regaining their footing in the Rust Belt, and it seems that Democrats have been able to fix negative trends that have been happening towards them for the last decade. In 2016, Donald Trump was able to flip practically the whole Rust Belt, excluding Minnesota, in his favor, with Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania flipping to him, as well as Iowa and Ohio, which were expected to flip. And that raised a lot of alarm signs for Democrats across the Rust Belt. And how Donald Trump was able to achieve that is by doing really well with the white working class, doing really well with working class and rural voters across these states, as well as low turnout or soft turnout from black voters in the big cities like Detroit, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, which was able to give Donald Trump very narrow victories across these three states. And since Donald Trump's ability to break through in 2016, Republicans have really struggled in the Rust Belt since 2016, excluding Ron Johnson's narrow victory in 2022, as well as a couple not mainstream races in Pennsylvania. Republicans have lost all federal or mainstream elections across the Rust Belt: Senate, gubernatorial, any statewide office, including the 2020 presidential race, where Joe Biden flipped all of these states. But even though things look like they're getting better for Democrats in the Rust Belt, and there's many articles about this, about how Democrats are turning things around in terms of momentum, there's a lot of reasons why Democrats are doomed in the Rust Belt in the future. And I'm going to be talking about that today. And the main reason Democrats are doomed is we already know about Donald Trump improving amongst white rural and white working class voters. But the main reason that Donald Trump was able to win in these three states is because you saw a turnout drop in particularly amongst black voters and amongst minority voters in the big cities across these states, which make up a very sizable percent of these states' population. And with a decrease amongst that demographic, it allows Republicans to be able to win, pretty easily across these states. Because without Milwaukee and Wisconsin, without Detroit and Michigan, and without Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, as well as without Chicago and Illinois, these states are all Republican states overall. So with that, with the loss of those voters, Democrats are not able to make up for that in other parts of the states. And even though Democrats have been able to improve amongst suburban voters, that's not enough to make up for the deficit amongst black voters in the big cities. Because even in Ohio, for example, a state where Donald Trump brought into his column by about 8 points in 2016, 2020, Democrats improved in the suburbs. 9-point improvement in Delaware County, but it was not enough to even shift Ohio left, because places like Cleveland, because places like Youngstown and other majority black areas across the state are losing population. And we've already seen it in Ohio. And even though we have not seen it take full effect in the Rust Belt, we have seen a glimpse of it. And there's many articles talking about reverse migration, or many people call it the next exodus. We all learned in high school about the original Great Migration, when you saw many black people from the South move to the Northeast, the Midwest, and the West in the 1920s to the 1960s. But since then, there's been a resurge of a great migration of mainly black people moving to places like Atlanta, moving to Charlotte and Raleigh, as well as Dallas and Houston and Texas. And that's helping Democrats in Georgia, obviously, North Carolina, and to some degree in Texas. But if Democrats lose 10 voters, like if they lose 10 black voters in Wisconsin, they've lost 9 out of the 10. So for every 10 black people that leave Michigan, Democrats lose 9 votes. So with that, that's a major problem for Democrats, and that's something they're not going to be able to make up for. And since 2016, with Hillary Clinton's lackluster performance across the Rust Belt, Democrats have committed to really going out of their way to diversify tickets in the Rust Belt. You've seen this with Tony Evers pick Mandela Barnes as his running mate, as well as Gretchen Whitmer pick Garland Gerkreis, as well as Josh Shapiro pick Austin Davis as his running mate. Something you also saw take place in Illinois. And Joe Biden also picked Kamala Harris for this very reason, is because Democrats have, they have to maximize turnout from these Black voters in these big cities to be able to kind of overpower the gains that Donald Trump is making amongst these working class and rural white voters across other parts of the states. The Democrats are not able to make up for without those voters in the big cities. So for Democrats in the Rust Belt, they don't realistically have a way to counteract that. And these gains they're making in places like Oakland County and the Wow counties, they're really notable, as well as the Philadelphia suburbs. But when you look at it, it's not going to make up for 600,000 votes in Philadelphia. Like, it's not going to make up for another 600,000 votes in Wayne County, or 300,000 votes in more than 300,000 votes in Milwaukee County. Like, they're not getting that any other places in the state. And if you look at Milwaukee, for example, I'm sorry, this is not loading. If you look at Milwaukee, for example, let's go down to the demographics section. You'll see that Milwaukee is losing population, and it's been losing population for a while, as well as Detroit, which is losing population. You'll see Detroit has been losing populations for a very long time, but it's really starting to negatively affect Democrats across these three states. And you see the same thing in Philadelphia, where Democrats have recently started losing population across these three states. And that's a problem, because those are the most Democratic areas across these three states. And Democrats are running out of votes in these cities. Democrats are running out of votes, running out of black votes in particular in Detroit, in Philadelphia, and Milwaukee. And they've already done so in Cleveland. And they're also running out of them in Chicago. And even though Illinois is a lot more bluer than these other Rust Belt states, you're still seeing Democrats hit their peak in these states. And with lackluster Republican candidates and with current trends, it's not something that is affecting Democrats as of now in terms of majorly. Like, Democrats are still able to win now. But as of 2028, as 2032 comes around, these states can be too working class, like too Republican friendly for Democrats to be able to win in these states. And that's something that Democrats need to really pay attention to and really need to prepare for, because states like North Carolina and Texas are going to be the future Democratic battlegrounds, and Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin's time is running out. And it's possible the Democrats can hold on here for longer with the coalitions they're building as of currently, but with the demographics that we're seeing across these states and in specific places in these states where Democrats are losing votes and losing population in these areas, it's going to hurt them tremendously. And Gretchen Whitmer knows that, Josh Shapiro knows that, and Tony Evers knows that as well as Joe Biden. So with that, Democrats don't realistically have a way to improve amongst the demographics they're working with. And they can make gains amongst some of them, like suburban voters, amongst college-educated voters, but it's not enough to make up for their most supportive demographic. So with that, I do expect for Illinois to narrow. Republicans are going to wipe the floor of Democrats in these other Rust Belt states: Indiana, Ohio, Iowa, Missouri, Kentucky, and West Virginia. I do expect Minnesota to stay in a Democratic column, mainly because Minnesota's different. Minnesota's a lot more educated than other Rust Belt states. So what you're seeing in Minnesota is gains amongst educated voters, and there's a lot of them where there is not as many in these other Rust Belt states. So Democrats should have a pretty bright future in Minnesota as of currently, but they're still going to probably end up losing significant ground amongst rural and white working class voters. But I do expect for Democrats to lose Wisconsin and Pennsylvania probably by 2032, potentially 2028, and by 2032 to probably lose Michigan. So with that, that's very bad for Democrats, because Democrats rely on these three states to win presidentially. So Democrats need to start laying out ways to counteract these voters, ways to outperform those voters, because Donald Trump ran so future Republicans could walk, and other Republicans won't have to do what Donald Trump has to do when he has to maximize turnout from these rural and working class counties, because 10 years from now, it won't be as many voters here for Republicans to be able to counteract in these rural areas. And with that, Republicans won't need to do as much as Donald Trump had to do to be able to come close or winning. So he ran so his future candidates could walk. And even though it might not be enough for the future, it might not be enough for currently in terms of Democrats being able to overcome these voters in the big cities, it is enough in the future. And even though it might not be enough to counteract losses in other states in the South, it might be for a short amount of time. And that's all I have to talk about today for this why reverse migration hurts Democrats the most in the Rust Belt, and inevitable demise of Rust Belt Democrats. So thank you guys so much for tuning into my video. My next video is going to be about all of the recent topics going on in American politics. I'm just going to be doing a breakdown video covering everything that's going on in America as of currently. So thank you guys so much for tuning into my video. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and tune into my next video. Thank you guys so much for your time, and make sure you guys have a great day.